Oh, hi there. My name is Timmy Joe, and today on the program, another camera review for you. Got a bit of an expensive point and shoot, a super zoom. This is the Nikon B700 super zoom point and shoot camera, and I thought we'd do a real good review on this, let you know how the photos turn out, how the video turns out. Does it actually shoot 4K video? Is it good? Is it any good? Who knows? But I will answer all of those questions for you after this intro, so stick around. My name is Timmy Joe, and this is the Nikon B700. Whoa, so Nikon B700, what is this? Well, it looks like a DSLR. It looks like, an expensive camera. It has a lot of cool options on it, actually. But is it, a replacement for a DSLR? No, it is not. In fact, one of the biggest drawbacks of this camera is the sensor size. It has a 1 2/3 inch, a half 0.3 inch sensor. That's a really small sensor. In fact, it is probably a quarter of the size of most SLR cameras, cheap SLR cameras, and it's like a tenth the size of a full frame sensor. So we're looking at some small stuff here, and although it has a pretty crazy zoom on it, listen to this. That sounds like my VHS camcorder loading a tape from the 90s. It sounds pretty weird. As well as when you pick this thing up, it feels pretty plasticky. It might look like its DSLR counterparts, but really it is very plasticky, and the switches and stuff like that aren't all that expensive. But an overview of what it's got: it's a 20 megapixel camera. It claims to have 4K video, as well as 1080p video and some slow motion shooting modes. It has a lot of scene modes specific to like taking pictures of sports, of pets, of the moon, of the night sky. Some cool time-lapse features as well. It has that flippy outy vlogging screen. It has an electronic viewfinder, as well as a pretty decent battery life. But other than that, it does have a lot on paper. It is very expensive. It's $450 to $550 regular, and for that's entry-level mirrorless camera, or maybe even like T3, T5i Canon levels. So you can get an SLR camera for that kind of money, as well as you can get a pretty good point and shoot that's not a super zoom like the RX100 Mark I. But what we'll do is we'll get to some sample video, some sample images. We'll go over what I was able to accomplish, having this for a couple days and taking some photos and video, and then we will jump into the pros and cons, and I'll let you know who this video camera / picture camera is for. Bah! So, those are the sample images. I think that there's a little bit left to be desired with the sensor size inside of this thing. I also wanted to show you what it would look like set up as my YouTube camera. So we're going to go ahead and switch that out right now. So there's the Nikon, and it's actually got a pretty wide angle lens on it, considering this 60 times zoom. This Coolpix line has a B500 below this camera, and this is the B700, and then there's a 900 above it, which has kind of the same specs, but has a 83 times super zoom, which is really crazy. So, what are my initial impressions of this? What do I think of it as kind of an amateur photographer? Well, coming from both a SLR, a Canon 70D, and I had a Sony A5000 recently. Both of those are, bordering on the prosumer level, or, a bit more than an amateur, where this camera is definitely not a professional camera. Before I get into all the cons, let's talk pros. I took this thing out and took pictures, as you saw, and it did kind of fairly well, but I found the images were a little bit flat. But pros would definitely be that zoom. The zoom is super cool. I took it up on the parking structure, took some pictures across the city, and was getting some pretty clear images of like the highway going up the hill, which was kilometers away. The ski hill in my town, I could see the lift and parts of the hill, and I was definitely like 5 kilometers, 3 or 4 miles away. It has some interesting shooting modes for beginners. You can put it into scene, and it basically outlines everything you'd want to do without you having to fiddle with any settings. There's a pet mode, a kid mode, a sports mode, and in these modes it does things like activate a quick shutter. It takes multiple pictures at one press. There's a moon mode, a night sky mode. There's even some really good time-lapse modes on here that makes a video out of a time-lapse all on its own in the camera, which was pretty neat. I did find the menus pretty rudimentary, and even on the Sony A5000 they did a better job of outlining what the mode did for you, rather than it just having like one quick description of a name and leaving it up to you to kind of play with it or look on in the manual. It does have some fast burst modes, which are kind of fun. It does shoot in RAW. It has Wi-Fi and the PIC bridge, which is Nikon's quick thing to the phone. It has the electronic viewfinder and the flippy Eddie screen. Fairly big battery, but getting into the cons, right off the hop, I will talk about both the electronic viewfinder and the flippy Eddie screen. They're functional, but they're really low resolution. The flippy Eddie screen, it's not terrible, but it could be a touch screen and then provide you a little bit more access to some of the shooting modes and stuff like that, and a little bit more control. But it's not. It's just a relatively low resolution screen. And then the electronic viewfinder is, dare I say, terrible. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. It's basically like this little tiny LCD inside that has really bad color reproduction. It's definitely cropped, and you're looking through a little zoom at it, and it's pretty slow to activate when you put it up to your face. There's like a little sensor that turns the big screen off and puts that on. It definitely made it so a few times I wanted to grab a quick shot and I wanted to put it up to my face, and I lost the shot in that transition. And just at least it was there, I guess, but definitely not that usable. Moving on to some other cons. Very small sensor size. Like I said, it's a half 0.3 inch sensor, which is very, very small for this level and expensive camera. Photos are very over processed, over sharpened in post processing. This does shoot raw, and whether or not you can kind of recover some of those details and stuff in RAW, with that small sensor size, it's gonna be hard. It only goes up to ISO 3200. A lot of these cameras go up to 12,000 and beyond. So I don't even think with that small sensor size 1600 is going to be usable anyways. So the fact that it doesn't go any higher than 3200 isn't that big a deal. The 4K video, as you saw, if you crop into it, it still looks like you're cropping into the 1080p video, and you're limited. Like, I have a minute and 28 seconds left shooting this 4K video to talk, so I'm gonna have to turn the camera off, because you're only limited to like 7.5 minutes of 4K video recording. You're a half hour on the 1080p, so at least that. A lot of the buttons and switches feel very cheap, kind of are slow to respond. The zoom motor sounds like a drowning rat. It's kind of got a lot of cons for the benefits of having all the features that it has. The manual controls are a joke. I was trying to get a picture of the moon, here, and it was not, because there was a little bit of fog over the moon, even in the moon setting. I like the idea of the moon setting, but it was not working out, so I thought I'll adjust the focus myself. When you switch it into manual focus, you're limited. It actually cuts a lot of the other manual functions out, like ISO settings and stuff like that. So on the whole, it's questionable who this camera is for. It's definitely not for a prosumer type situation. So I'm going to switch back to my phone here, and we'll kind of sum things up. So in conclusion, should you buy the Nikon B700? Well, I'll leave that up to you. There are a lot of good things going for it, especially if you're not used to an SLR camera, or a high-level Nikon or Canon or Sony. But in this price range, it kind of gets weird. There are a few entry-level mirrorless cameras that I would recommend over this, like the Sony a5000, even the point-and-shoot, the Sony RX100 Mark I, which they do still sell, is selling for around this same amount. But I mean, are you going to notice if you're a layman or a first-time, expensive camera buyer? Maybe you'll be happier with this kind of set of tools and having the super zoom and the electronic viewfinder. Real quick, I'll sum it up like this. Cool super zoom, picture quality is adequate, but not, SLR capable. That is for sure. It's on the higher end of point and shoots. The 4K video is a joke. It shoots 1080p video upscaled to 4K as far as I'm concerned. The sensor's too small. It does have a really nice wide angle on it to the super zoom, which is pretty cool. If you're a vlogger, the flippy outy screen works. Stereo microphones work. It has an electronic viewfinder in those cases that you don't want to be using, the back, and you want to make sure you've got something. But all of this stuff is on the very low entry level of features. So, I'll leave it to you. But my name is Timmy Joe. I would say I'm going to take this Nikon B700 back, and I might go back with the Sony super zoom range. Is that something that you're interested in? Leave comments below. My name is Timmy Joe. I have social media, Twitter and Instagram. Watch Timmy Joe. I make videos 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tech reviews, camera reviews. So hit that subscribe button, and I'll leave it to you. But my name is Timmy Joe. This is the Nikon B700.